everyone doing out there? Welcome to a Word Hole Media presentation of Major League A-Holes in the Hole and Socks type thing. I'm Pete.
I'm Ryan. You are in the hole with Major League A-Holes, episode 137. Our second postseason. It's the postseason edition now, I guess.
Yes.
We're doing these about once a month at this point in the off season. I think we'll do one more in December unless more crazy shit happens in this off season, which there should be some free agents that we need to talk about. But we had to do one immediately this week because of not just the Cubs, but also your Giants have stolen managers from your division rivals. So the big news, of course, is Craig Counsell, but last month, Bob Melvin is now a Giant, which is amazing, and the parallels are uncanny. So we'll talk about those. We've got, I'm going to call this segment Out with the Old, as a mass exodus of Cubs, White Sox, and Tigers, even a Giant there, have left the team, whether it's a player option or team decision. So those are going to be interesting to talk about. I also want to talk about in with the new potential free agent targets or trade targets. I've got that for at least for the Cubs. There's a few theories out there. For the first time ever, we're going to have to revisit an aesthetics segment, as there's been some controversy with the Giants advertisement patch on their sleeve, which is hilarious. But then we're gonna start discussing our asshole of the year. We haven't talked about this a whole lot, but I think we want to get people's nominations as well. But you and I can just start to talk about who might be nominated for asshole of the year, and then we'll, as a preview to our final episode of 2023, probably sometime in December, our official 5th annual asshole of the year. So I guess we might as well go ahead and jump into the news.
Yeah.
Good
news.
Yeah.
North side.
Did you notice this?
The north side.
It's kind of created a firestorm. Craig Counsell is the new manager of the Chicago Cubs from out of nowhere. Some have said it's from out of left field. What the fuck? I was on Twitter just randomly Monday afternoon. I saw, I knew Counsell had been interviewing with the Mets and the Guardians, potentially the Yankees. And there was a little bit of, talk about that, minor things on Twitter. I saw Bruce Levine tweeted there may be a mystery team involved in Craig Counsell. And I was really about to write back to him like, I could say that about anything. There may be a mystery team like that. That's meaningless, like a total meaningless tweet. What I didn't realize is that Bruce probably knew it was involving the fucking Cubs and just didn't necessarily tweet it very emphatically. But about maybe a half hour after that, I just happened to jump on, and 10 seconds before I jumped on, Ken Rosenthal tweeted that Craig Counsell is indeed going to the Chicago Cubs. And I literally went to like the source page, like the account, because I was sure it was just a parody account. Like there's no chance. Like, when I saw the mystery team, I thought, Yankees, there was also a rumor it was a team that did not have a manager vacancy. So I thought everybody hates Aaron Boone, so he's probably gone. But I looked, and the Ken Rosenthal account I was looking at had over 1 million followers. I'm like, this is fucking real. So I couldn't believe it. I don't think anyone could believe it. Nobody saw it coming. I think I sent you a text, or did I tweet you right away?
You did.
What the fuck is going on? Not that you would necessarily care, but I thought you'd be interested in some baseball conversation. But
yeah, it seems like I said, it felt like a White Sox move, but.
Yeah, I saw that. What does that mean? Just a dick move?
Well, no, just like you get the whether he's you grab the best thing that's out there, but when you look at the full resume, it's not that impressive.
Oh, okay.
And like you look at a guy who's had some pretty quality teams in the Brewers, and his playoff percentage is a .338 winning percentage.
Okay,
I
so
mean,
we're gonna jump
like,
into the anti category right now.
well, yeah. I mean, I guess it's better than David Ross because of the epic collapse at the end of the year on a team that everyone forgets shouldn't have won more than probably 75 games, but somehow managed to nearly make the playoffs. But he's a shitty manager. I mean, like,
Ooh.
I just like.
You went on this
I don't think
diatribe last
I what
episode,
I
which I
did,
appreciated.
and I don't. I'm not saying Counsell is or is not a better manager than David Ross, but I don't think you've made a step forward. I think you've lateraled.
I think you are in the drastic minority in that opinion, and that's fine.
Doesn't mean it's wrong.
Right, that's true, and we will certainly find out. I think it's an improvement, and I think it's obvious it's an improvement, but I would leave it open to argument how much of an improvement any manager could make. I would say, and I think we talked about this for a while. I like Rossi, and we'll get into that in a bit. I think he was a average to above average manager at best. I don't think he was great. I don't think he was terrible by any means. I think a lot of Cubs Twitter thought he was a terrible manager, blaming him on every bullpen failure that wasn't his fault. My only consistent criticism of Rossi was he loved a bunt, and I just think a bunt is a waste of an out. You only get 27 of them, and they're precious, and he threw them away too often. But that's still a minor thing. Although Jed Hoyer has been on the radio several times, subtly complaining about how often David Ross had bunted over the years. So there was some validity there at least. But I think with the limited payroll, with the limited resources that the Brewers have had over the years, for the consistent winning that Craig Counsell has done over time, not in the small sample size of the playoffs. Obviously, you can definitely hold that against him, but I think that's always going to be the small sample size. But I think he's gotten the absolute most out of those rosters that he's had over 9 years in Milwaukee. I think it has to be an improvement. I don't know if that means 2 wins, 3 wins. We've heard managers are worth maybe 4 or 5 wins per year or losses. I think that could be 1 or 2 is it. So I think that's interesting though. But I think the other interesting part of it is, well, there's several, but the Cubs made this monumental splash that the whole baseball world is shocked over and is talking about. And, everyone's initial reactions are, that's a fucking cold-hearted gangster move. They are not fucking around anymore. They are going for it. And that was my initial reaction too. And the more I thought about it, they're spending $40 million for a manager instead of the average 25 million over 5 years. They've got him for a 5-year deal for $40 million. That's like a very low end free agent signing. That's a very cheap way to get a lot of talk about your team right now and get everyone on board thinking you were going to be not fucking around anymore, as they did a lot last year with, I called it confusing activity with accomplishment over and over again with their free agent signings. I find this interesting. It's also a move that counts nothing towards the luxury tax, which is shrewd. It's a way to improve your team without stopping you from spending other monies if they so choose, which they fucking better. So I am 100% for this. Again, I liked Rossi. I think this is an improvement over Ross. We'll talk about we'll find out how much of an improvement. I would say Craig Counsell is a top 5 manager in the majors. I would also include your Bob Melvin over there. Bruce Bochy, your former manager, who is now a 4-time World Series champion. I would put AJ Hinch in that conversation, which I'm not sure others would, but he's a manager. That's a group of managers that I do not question necessarily when they're making bullpen moves or other things. And I think there's a confidence, there's a track record. You can see that Craig Counsell has maximized the assets that he has for years, and he has more assets available to him. He definitely wanted to come to the Cubs. He could have gone anywhere. He did interview with the Mets. I thought he was going to go to the Mets for sure. His former general manager just went there, so it seemed like a pretty simple transaction to move with your general manager that you've been with for 10 years right over to a team that has unlimited resources. He didn't want to do that. Apparently it comes down to family and proximity. He literally just moves 90 minutes down the road where his family can still stay in Wisconsin. He was born in Wisconsin, which is amazing. He's the most Wisconsin, most Brewers player / manager you could ever have. I guess he's got daughters in high school there. He's got sons in playing at 2 different Big Ten universities in baseball, I think at Minnesota and Michigan. So he doesn't have to uproot his life. And I would say he certainly has moves to in a better franchise, a franchise with far more resources than what he's been butting his head up against in Milwaukee. So I think there's logic there. I think the biggest question is, what was that conversation like for Jed with David Ross?
He flew down to Florida.
He did fly down. Yeah, you have to. They like less than a month ago, Jed and Tom Ricketts both endorsed him publicly, saying he's their manager going forward. They are more than happy with his performance despite the failings of this season, which I think they're rightly taking your point of view. Like, he overachieved with that team, a team that was expected to have potentially 70, 75 wins, 77. They finished 1 game short of the Arizona Diamondbacks, who ended up going to the World Series, which shows you what a razor thin edge that the baseball season, especially the baseball playoffs are. So, I mean, can you the Rossi, the legend as a player with the Cubs, he was loved as a manager. I think a lot of people questioned a lot of his bullpen decisions, which again I think are bullshit. He caught a lot of flack, but everybody catches flack on Twitter.
Yeah, I mean, everyone catches flack at any point for bullpen decisions.
Yeah, but I think
even when, like you said, it's not the manager's fault. At
some point you got to blame the players.
You can always question it, though. It's always going to be scrutinized.
It's very easy because when it doesn't work, you can call it out. But the 15 times it does work, you don't say anything about it. So,
yeah, exactly. So, I mean, it's always going to be a topic of conversation.
I think overall he was very popular as the Cubs manager, and it's just stunning how this played out. So I've got mixed feelings about it, I guess. I think the Cubs improved themselves, and I think that's the way Hoyer looks at it. We'll see how much, I guess, is the key to that.
I think one thing real quickly worth talking about was that the Milwaukee owner, when Counsell came in to tell him, his initial reaction was, "Are you messing with me?" Those are the 5 words he said to him. Like, you're fucking kidding. You're not going to the Cubs. That's a joke.
Yeah, that's speaking of awkward conversations, that must have been strange. But yeah, the owner actually went out, talking to the press afterwards. He kind of put it on Counsell, like, well, he just lost his community, and he lost Milwaukee. We didn't lose Counsell; he lost us, which is kind of sour grapes and understandable. The problem is Milwaukee's owner was just threatening to leave for Nashville to get a new stadium renovation deal from the taxpayers of Wisconsin. So he was about ready and willing to leave the people of Wisconsin. Yet he's throwing this in the face of Counsell. So it's kind of ironic and hypocritical how he had to throw that out there. But there was some blowback. Craig Counsell Park, which I guess is a little league field someplace, sign did get some defacing. I guess
Oh,
somebody just terribly spray painted ass over Craig Counsell's name, which it kind of speaks to the how cute those Wisconsin people are. They're trying to be really mean, but that's the best they could come up with.
ass.
I thought they probably at least they could have like just changed his name to Craig Counsell out.
Oh,
That would have been more clever than ass, I guess. But yes, so there is some blowback at least. But I mean, it doesn't sound like he's going to move his family. You know, it's not. I don't think he has to worry
too
about
bad
his.
for them.
Yeah.
No, they're gonna get shit all the time.
Yeah, I'm
Way
not
to
sure.
go, Craig.
I'm not sure how angry that's going to be over time. I think those are nice people. I think they understand, but it is going to ratchet up the rivalry. I'm dying for the first Milwaukee/Cubs game in Milwaukee. That should be an angry crowd. Should be a fun atmosphere, and that rivalry has ramped up over these last 5-6 years to become a really fun rivalry. Which it's only going to get even more heated. So I think that's great for baseball in general. I'm looking forward to that.
You know, the question will be, will there be more Cubs or Brewers fans at some of those games? And
that's the joke I've been hearing. Yeah, is he going to get booed in his first game back? Well, there's probably going to be more Cubs fans there anyway. So
I mean,
hear the boos.
They run that. I wonder if the Brewers will resort to the Nashville Predators.
They've done that.
Have they done that?
Yeah, they put
out of market. Yeah,
they put some kind of zip code limitation on tickets, which is hilarious because everyone just buys their tickets on the secondary market anyway, so they couldn't stop that. But yeah, they've tried that the same way the Predators did for the Blackhawks. But
yeah, bitter franchises.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, we should. I think it's we reference Parkinson Spiegel from time to time from 670 The Score in Chicago radio.
Parkinson is Spiegel.
Yeah. But Parkin says he wants more hate in sports, less hate in the real world, but more hate in sports. Which I like that. The more hate you get in sports, the better channeled energy there is.
Well, maybe we'll have a lot more tickle fights between the Brewers and the Cubs now.
I guarantee we will.
Yes.
So that's all I had for that. We have a similar situation with a little less vitriol for your San Francisco Giants and their new manager.
Yeah, and if you remember correctly, we had a brief conversation on how I said, the perfect manager for the Giants would be Bob Melvin, and I believe like earlier that day, or maybe it was the day before, because I had read prior before the news broke that San Diego was going to keep him. I had read that he might be leaving. They might be looking to move on before they were going to, commit that they were going to finish out the contract with him. So that's why I had brought that up that night. And you spoiled my excitement by saying, well, no, San Diego just announced that they're going to stick with Melvin.
It happened earlier that afternoon. So it was an announcement. Obviously there was nothing official, but that was prescient timing on your part.
Yeah, it's interesting that both teams we're discussing here have had announced that they were sticking with their manager, and then boom.
Don't believe a word we say.
My wish comes true. The Padres didn't even hesitate, much like the A's didn't hesitate to let Bob interview and go to the Padres. I mean, the A's knew what
A's didn't want to pay him.
Yeah, they didn't want to pay him. They knew what they were going to be, so why have them? The Padres.
It's a similar situation in San Diego, ironically.
Yeah, and as I read more about this to just bring myself up to speed before doing a podcast tonight,
that was a good idea.
AJ Preller, the San Diego Padres GM, he and Melvin never really had a solid relationship.
Yeah.
They argued consistently on lineups, roster construction, and everyone, agreed to talk to the Athletic but remain anonymous. But one player said that he felt with the interactions that he had seen that the relationship was unrepairable. it almost reminds me of Moneyball and how there was that huge headbutting on lineup construction, and who was supposed to be on the field. And I just immediately thought of that when I read
that movie's
this
so
article.
great to reference, because that's really our only, I mean, granted, theatrical peek into what those interpersonal dynamics might be like between a manager and a general manager. But that shit goes on, so I could totally see what's happening there, with Preller throwing a chair out of his office into a hallway wall.
Yeah, exactly.
Bob Melvin wanting nothing to do with him. It's a little different dynamic 20 years later, as analytics have taken over and are universally accepted. But it's just ironic that it involves a former A's manager again. But you guys win. I mean, I think Melvin, we've talked about it for years. He's a great manager. And I was shocked that San Diego would let him go, and let alone let him. There was a little bit to that. They had to allow him to interview with the Giants. At that point, I think anytime before November 1st, you had to get permission to interview. And it sounded like the Padres are like, go ahead. Here, take my wife, please.
Please, yeah.
That was our text joke back and forth. But
yeah, when I read that the Padres let him interview, I said, "Oh, this is a done deal." That right at that point, I'm like, "This is over," because he's an ex-Giant. Well, excuse me, he's an ex-Giant player. He was he fought for the Giants, so he's always wanted to manage there, and the timing just never really worked out. So he's kind of getting his wish. And then him and you probably read this, him and Sadid, the president of baseball operations for the Giants, they were together in Oakland. So that's where Fadid was, when he started.
Farhid Zahada, or what's his name?
Yeah, Sadid, Farheen Sadid. Zadi?
I don't think
Zadi, as Zaidi, Zadi.
Okay.
Farhan Zadi. Sure. We'll call him Z for the rest of this podcast for everyone's sake.
Z, I like that. That's
Melvin took the job, and he was Melvin's point of contact, and they immediately hit it off. They had similar analytics ideas.
Okay.
They didn't always agree on like who should be playing when. And Z said he learned from Bob that sometimes you got to go with your gut. The analytics don't always hold true for the situation.
I think that's the most practical way to handle that argument. Analytics versus scouting, everything else. Use analytics as a tool, but it's not the end all be all. And I think that's the healthiest way to look at it.
Yeah, and they basically outlined in this article that the reason Kapler's not there is he just never disagreed with anything that was given to him. He's just like, okay,
really?
yeah. He never.
He's just a yes man.
They were just all
button manager.
They were always on the same page, and they literally said in this article that the 107 games they won, that team was completely run on analytics, nothing else. They literally looked at the numbers and said, this guy is in the lineup tonight, this guy is not. End of story.
Yeah.
And it worked for one season.
Worked for one season, yes.
Yeah. So
not so much afterwards.
That could be what, maybe that's also one of Kapler's flaws, is that he doesn't have that ability to adjust in game.
He definitely doesn't have a gut.
He doesn't have a gut. But I would not want to. I don't want to get an argument with him at a bar.
He will kick everyone's ass. But.
Yeah, he will beat me and then who's ever with me just for fun.
I'm surprised he ever gets fired from a job, because I would think whoever's firing him would be terrified for their lives.
They do it over Zoom.
That's the best way to do
it. The Zoom meeting doesn't finish though, because the computer gets destroyed. But so I think this renewal of this relationship, their contracts are tied together, which is a big deal for the Giants. They're both signed through 2026. So basically Bob Melvin and Z have 3 years to right this ship, get it back on track, get it to some consistency that Giants fans and the Giants organization is used to, and that's the commitment they've made. I think it'll work. It'll work from the standpoint of they'll have winning teams. The question is, will they be able to win enough games when now you have a division with the Arizona Diamondbacks, the mysterious Padres, who are by far on paper, even with some guys leaving, are the most stacked team in that division, and the Dodgers.
I would say the Dodgers are probably ahead of them, but you've got a tough division no matter what.
Yeah. And the Diamondbacks are only going to get better. They're just a team on the rise.
I'm so confused with the Diamondbacks. They were just all year, they were decent. Honestly, I didn't see them as much better than the Cubs, and literally they finished one game better than the Cubs. They did sweep them at the end of the year, but they didn't look great. It's just sort of testimony to get in the playoffs and see what the fuck happens. And they got all the way to the World Series where they flamed out. But I'm confused and fascinated by the San Diego Padres, who were one of the crazy teams that spent absolutely crazy money over the last couple of years and just had it blow up completely in their face, like the Mets. They're the cautionary tales about spending your way to a championship. On the opposite side of that coin is our world champion Texas Rangers, who we mocked last year, who failed after spending close to $1 billion. It all worked out for him this year. So, I mean, this is why baseball is endlessly fascinating, because it doesn't make fucking sense. There isn't one way to do things. There's a million ways to do things, and then you got to hope for some luck. But the Padres clearly had to dump salary, and they had to dump money any way they could. And that's why Bob Melvin is now the manager for the San Francisco Giants. It's kind of a harbinger of ways. Beyond spending beyond their means, I believe, they're one of the teams that lost their TV deal due to the bankruptcy of Bally Sports, or their parent company. They actually just had to take out a $50 million loan to cover payroll this month.
To pay Manny Machado?
Yeah. And Fernando Tatis.
Yeah.
And yeah. So they're in hell right now, salary hell. I haven't heard of a major league team. I'm sure it's happened, but I haven't heard of a major league team having to take out a loan, let alone a $50 million loan to cover payroll. So they're in dire straits. And I don't fully understand the ins and outs of their TV deal falling apart. If that was money they were certainly counting on, but now it's gone. Now it's in bankruptcy court they're fighting for. Of course, the TV coverage was picked up by Major League Baseball Network.
Right.
They've just basically put everyone on staff that was working at Bally Sports San Diego, or whatever it was called. So the games were covered, but I don't know if Major League Baseball is like covering the money they lost from that deal, or how that's being worked. But they're fucked. And I think part of it was their overzealous spending, but then this TV deal is exacerbating things. So we're going to be talking about them a little bit later when we talk about potential trade targets, because Juan Soto is definitely on the market. He's in his last year of his essentially rookie deal that the Padres traded for. So he's not getting a ton of money right now, but he will be eventually. But they're looking to unload him right now because they will not be able to pay him in the future. So that may or may not lead to some deals that could be had by any of our teams, or at least a couple of the teams we'll be talking about. But this will also be the sixth manager that the Padres will have to hire in the last 10 years.
Yeah, it's pathetic.
So they're just a mess, and I picked them to go to the World Series, I think, each of the last 2 years, and I was foolishly. I mean, that's just how our dumbass picks come about. They're always dumbass picks. So I'll have to adjust my acumen for for our next set.
We might as well go for a third year. It's got to happen.
Yeah, I mean, if the Rangers can do it with the same strategies,
they just said, "Hey, let's get a new manager." Oh, look, it worked.
Yeah, that was pretty good.
Yeah,
maybe the manager means more than I was giving credit to earlier.
Well, I mean, Bruce Bochy is an argument to say it does, because I went back and looked. Like they only added 3 pitchers in the offseason. They had no huge offseason moves because they had so much money committed. One of them
got Nate Eovaldi. He was
Eovaldi, the DeGrom, who didn't participate basically,
and then they finally got Scherzer, but I don't know.
Yeah, but that was Scherzer was in a trade. I'm just saying
right.
When you're talking
Scherzer
about,
didn't even contribute that much. So.
No, yeah. So they basically won with the same team from the year prior with a new manager. So yeah, I think depending on the level of the manager, it can make a huge difference. So anyway.
Yeah.
But I'm excited for Bob Melvin. It's my choice and it happened. I willed it into existence that night. I used my powers with the baseball gods. Since I am up in the loft, I'm closer to them. So touched up to them and it happened.
I tried to squash it immediately.
Yeah, you're like, dude, fucking read the paper. read the Twitter. It's done. So that's all I got, though. All right. I'm optimistic.
Well, I think we're going to start this next segment. Usually we jump back and forth between our teams and do it that way, but I think I think it made sense this week to talk about the managers. Now we're going to talk about all the players that have left our teams. We're going to call it Out with the Old. Clearly, very obviously, Cody Bellinger was going to leave the Cubs, opt out of $25 million, his second-year option, his Cubs deal, so he could test full free agency again after a tremendous 5 months, I'll say. Not so much the last month of the season, but he and his agent, Scott Boras, decided that would be the best course of action. Not surprising to anybody. There's still a potential the Cubs could sign him back. I'm against that simply because of his inconsistency over time, and to get him for a multi-year deal for hundreds of millions of dollars that he will require just doesn't seem like the best way to go about things. I'm really concerned about the final month of the season where pitchers figured out they could beat him simply with velocity. He couldn't hit fastballs. And that seems like a very simple way to get any hitter out if they can't hit a fastball. So
yeah,
I'm a little concerned about that. So investing more in him, I think Cubs got absolutely everything they could out of that deal. He got everything he could out of being a Cub. So I think it's a very understandable parting of ways. What's a little more perplexing is the option of Marcus Stroman choosing to opt out of his 3-year deal with the Cubs, the final year of his 3-year deal with the Cubs, leaving $21 million on the table. And
I don't understand.
I'm flabbergasted. If he had an entire season like he did the first half of this past season, I could maybe understand. He was on track to be a Cy Young Award winner up until July, essentially. And then things fell apart. He got hurt. He had a hip injury that eventually he had a rib cartilage injury that nobody fully understands. He did come back eventually, but it wasn't nearly what he was prior to that in the first half of the season. So he's looking. I'm guessing that his thought process is he's got to be a free agent now. He's in his mid-30s. He's probably looking for a 3-year deal, and he can find a way to make more than $21 million over the next 3 years. I don't know what would happen to him next year. I don't think it would be any better than what we saw this past season. So I think he was going to be losing money eventually. He might have a really hard time after next season getting a free agent deal. So
yeah,
I guess there's some logic there. And I think he will get, I would say he's worth, 12 million, not 21 million, 12, maybe 36 million over 3 years is the deal he's probably going to be looking at or hoping for. And that'd be better than 1 year of 21 million and then, scraps after that. So that's the only way I can figure out the logic. Turning down an automatic $21 million, but I don't know. I think. What do you think?
I think he's a head case. I've said that more
That's
than once. I think
we've seen it.
I think he feels. I think part of his decision making is he feels slighted by the Cubs because he went over and over again on how like he wanted to get a deal done. I'm
Yep.
here. I'm ready to make this deal. Let's
Yeah,
do
he
this
was
deal.
negotiating his deal in the public in the press all
Yeah.
season long, essentially.
Yeah.
So, which is his prerogative. It's just a bit unusual, but yeah, he got his opinions out there, and he tried to create leverage in many ways. So,
and I mean, I think the fact I was shocked because to your point, he's going to get the inverse of the 21. He's going to reverse it. He's going to maybe get 12. People are going to look at his attempts to negotiate
mm-hmm.
in the press too. That's going to be like a negative against him. And I don't understand the dude. He's a very vocal dude, which is cool. Like whatever.
I like that.
You can have your opinion, and that's fine. There's
I like him a lot. I love
but,
that he talks. That he's an open book. He will tell you exactly what he's thinking.
Yeah,
I think he's a really smart I think I don't really want him on my team though, because there seems to be weird shit that follows him everywhere. There's issues with every franchise he's been at.
Yeah,
So
you can look
minor
it up.
issues, nothing terrible, but there's always something. I feel like he kind of creates his own drama, which
and I feel like in most cases he ends up getting his feelings hurt by the organization at some point. He feels slighted by the organization.
I think that's how I think he feels slighted. I think that actually leads. I think that's his MO. He wants to feel slighted. That's how he performs at his best. But
I guess
it burns bridges and it doesn't work. I mean, it's worked for him for this far in his career, so I guess he's going to continue to do that. But I just think he's also potentially looking at it's a thin free agency market, which we'll talk about in a bit. But
not with pitching though. There's a lot of decent pitching. It's position players where it's thin.
Yeah. Well, I think he's hoping he's at the top end of that pitching market.
He's not.
I think he's overestimated that. I think he's in the middle at best. At his age and with the it's hard to call him issues. I don't know what to call it. There's just always something going on with him that seems a little bit a tad askew.
Yeah.
Say so. So yeah, we're on the same page with that. That's all I've got for the Cubs exodus. Should we switch over to the south side of town unless you had more?
No, I mean you don't regret. I think we covered this, so if I'm repeating myself, but do you? And it's easy, even easier now because the Cubs didn't make the playoffs. But like, don't you think you could have gotten a decent haul for Bellinger at the trade deadline?
Oh,
and
yeah,
and I was the one pushing for that.
Yeah, you were. You brought it up last episode. At the time, I said no, and I still think no because they had to make that push for the playoffs.
Okay, cool. Yeah, okay.
That's the only reason it was in it. Not trading him.
You're allowed to change your mind. You could be like, "Yeah, shit. I guess we should have," but whatever.
Yeah,
but yeah.
I'm sticking with it though. It made July, August, and September interesting baseball. They didn't trade away their assets. They were in it until the last day of the season. Essentially, they shit the bed in the last week. And they, in a different universe, one or two things go differently, and they are the Arizona Diamondbacks in the World Series. So I don't think
if
that's necessarily
doesn't forget how to catch a ball.
Well,
maybe
it might be. There's a few.
It might be in the playoffs.
A few moments of the revolving or the sliding doors of history, which could have changed. Maybe the Cubs would have been there. Their bullpen wasn't strong enough to sustain them through the playoffs is the main issue. But
yeah.
So yeah, no, I don't regret it. They had to hold on to it. It would have been nice to have a couple prospects that they would have gotten for Bellinger. But I don't think it's imperative that the Cubs added to their into their farm system because it's a pretty robust system that it's not hurting for at least depth of prospects. Maybe not the highest end of prospects, but they've got a lot of depth, and that's what we'll get into that in the next segment. But I think they'll be able to trade from that depth and maybe get some big names. But we talked a lot about my Cubs, talked a lot about your Giants. I think we need to talk about your White Sox finally.
Yeah, I mean, I think they went ahead and they went with the Pedro Grifol. Let's flush it, and they flushed it.
Oh, they flushed it. That's a great way to put it.
They basically flushed outside of Liam. They flushed the stank of 2023 for the most part.
Yeah.
TA, who brought a bunch of weirdness to the team. There's been talk that maybe he wasn't the greatest guy in the clubhouse. They made a move which I don't think would have been done if Han and Kenny were there. I think they would have rolled the dice because based on history,
that's a great point. Yeah,
they would have rolled the dice and said, at the worst case scenario, if we're not competitive at the All-Star break, if he's having a Timmy season that the White Sox had grown accustomed to, we got a great trade asset.
Mm-hmm.
Instead, we got, because we owe him $1 million for the buyout, we got $13 million back on that.
Yeah, I mean, I thought they might hold on to him just because he's $14 million. You just hope there's a bounce back year. Even if Colson Montgomery was ready to be called up, which he might be, I think you're going to get to that.
Yeah.
I think Tim would have agreed to move to second base.
Maybe,
so those would have been the ways he could have stayed. So I was a little surprised they let him go, but 14 million is still 14 million, but it's not outrageous money.
Right.
So I guess I was surprised. I haven't seen a ton of, and you're more clued into Sox Twitter, but I mean, is there a lot of kicking him in the ass as he leaves, or
no, not really.
I think in general, from what I've seen, it's Tim was a hero on the South Side for a long time, and it just kind of petered out in a terrible final season.
Well, one thing you should learn about White Sox Twitter, though, whatever the White Sox do right now, it's not good.
Yeah,
they could sign Shohei Ohtani this offseason, and there would be a problem with it. Well, we don't know if he's ever going to throw another pitch again.
There would be a problem.
I'm sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself in this outline.
We'll get to Ohtani for sure.
One move I was somewhat surprised at was Mike Clevinger. And the only reason I was surprised by that, not so much with the negative publicity brought on the team, but he was really our best starting pitcher this past year. And the money they were going to pay him next season for a guy with an ERA under 4 seemed like a no-brainer to me.
Well, it is a no-brainer. He's the one that opted out. It was
he opted. Oh, I'm sorry.
It was a mutual option. So
he opted out on his end. Okay.
Yeah. So the Sox wanted him for sure. He's the one that opted out. So
I didn't realize that part. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that wasn't. I just read that in one place, but when he signed, I didn't hear about the mutual.
I thought it was a club option. That's what I always read. So
yeah, no, it was a mutual option. So he's the one that rejected the White Sox. So, and maybe, I mean, it's if he's the one that opted out, maybe they wanted to hold on to him, but maybe he did them a favor in the long run. Because
I mean, he's another guy like Storman though that thinks he's going to get better than I think he was going to be 15 million this year. I mean,
he was easily your best pitcher. So, he was great down the stretch. So he's, if a team is willing to put up with the baggage he comes with, they're going to have a decent pitcher on their hands. But
so
if you want to deal with all that bullshit, and for the most part, we gave him tons of shit in the off season as the investigation for his domestic violence and all the other shit was going on. He did one thing with the White Sox that was annoying, but not that he should go to jail for it. But he played his first time having like walk up music or warm up music. He played Gold Digger.
Oh yeah.
And that was like the only controversial thing. It was like his kind of passive aggressive way to get back at his ex-wife or girlfriend or whatever.
Yeah.
It's just a gross thing to do, but that was the only real controversy throughout the season that I remember with Clevinger. So I don't know if maybe we blew things out of proportion, or if he's mature and there's nothing going on anymore. I don't know, but it's just kind of more part of the hangover, part of the stink, like you put it, of last season. That's probably
Yeah.
better to be gone. But
Yeah, I mean, I feel like Getz is looking at this as, there's certain guys I can't move, like Mancata, because he's getting paid $21 million. Who arguably, when he's on the field, is a really great player, but he can't stay on the field. But anyway, continuing on with, obviously Yasmani Grandal was not
surprising.
dude, not surprising. He can barely walk. Elvis has left the building, and I think that relationship has been terminated.
36, 37 now. Yeah,
I don't think we have to worry about that. Well,
you caught lightning in a bottle for 2 months, 2
Yeah.
seasons ago. So
yeah,
he
exactly.
maximized his value with you guys, but yeah,
Which we thought.
time to end. Yeah, exactly. It wasn't hard to see.
But last but not least, Liam Hendriks.
That sucks.
It's a sticky situation.
It's understandable, but
it's totally understandable for someone who wouldn't be able to play again till maybe towards the end of the season. Maybe a better case scenario after the midway point, after the all, or a little bit past midway point.
But are you going to be in a position to need a closer at that point? Need a lights out closer?
Well,
maybe,
but if we were, we would have needed a closer to get there.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's $15 million, and
which he gets paid no matter what.
So I thought he was only getting like 5.5 this year.
No, he gets the full 15, but they spread it out over 10 years.
Oh, okay, so yeah, he's getting like
1.5 a year for 10 years. So it's kind of like a mini Bobby Bonilla day. Every season. We'll have to figure out what day that is, but
if we do that, we have to do that for pretty much every team in baseball, because every team in baseball has its contract. In fact, we should come up with Jason Hayward Cubs Day, because he's getting.
It's over. They're finally done paying him.
Are they done paying him?
This final season? Yes.
Sure? Oh, okay.
Yes, I'm absolutely sure.
Yeah. All right.
Well, finally, they're out from underneath the contract of Jason Hayward.
But yeah, that's the only one that kind of makes me like, oh wow, that sucks. But
it's the right thing to do.
Yeah,
move for the franchise, but it just hurts. It also sucks. It's just horrible timing. It came one day after he won AL Comeback Player of the Year.
Yeah,
that was the headline the day before. The next day, Sox dump him. It's like, oh my god, just couldn't be worse timing. But well, he doesn't have sour grapes. He's getting paid one way or the other. He wasn't going to be pitching next year, so there's no reason to be sour. It's just not that they made the wrong choice, but it's just weird, not bad optics. I don't know how to put it, but just awkward in a sad way for such a cool dude. Went through so fucking much, and it just ends in just such a weird way.
What do all these moves really do for the White Sox? Well, not much, because Jerry Reinsdorf doesn't spend money, and he's already admitted he wouldn't get Ohtani. But
he laughed at the idea.
Could they afford Ohtani? They could afford to
absolutely
pay everyone in the free agent market. Because do you know what their estimated and we all know it's not a. We know we don't have a salary cap, but
the luxury tax threshold.
Yeah, let's work against the luxury tax threshold.
Okay, I just did this tonight for
room they have.
I did this tonight for the Cubs, and it's hard to figure out, especially at this point in the season, because things aren't finalized. But like the Cubs have almost $50 million, so I'm wondering, you got to be pushing $100 million at least.
162
below the $237,000 luxury tax threshold.
Yes.
That is not a cap. You could choose to go over that even.
Yes, we have estimate, because there's a site called Sport Track that I use that has all that stuff, and their estimated competitive balance tax base for 2024 is $162,883,324.
That's how much they have below the cap.
That's how much space they have with how there's
so their payroll is only like
structured.
80,000 or 80 million right now.
74.
My God, that includes 24 million for Moncada alone.
24 for Moncada, 17 for Benintendi, 13 for Eloy, 12 and a half for the best player, the best center fielder in baseball, Luis Robert Jr., at least American League, and 5.5 for everyone's favorite pitcher, Aaron Bummer.
Well, it's a good thing because you've got basically an entire rotation to rebuild. I think you have maybe 1.5 pitchers to build around right now. So
if I'm going to be a Cub fan, once we get to this free agent conversation, everyone's coming to the White Sox.
Oh boy.
All right. Anyway, that's all I got.
We're out with the old for the White Sox.
Flush it. And we should make one more point about out with the old and with the new. There are several new members of the coaching staff, which I was perplexed by, which I think we do have to start calling them, per your suggestion, the Chicago White Sox, because when you look at the picture of the announced coaching staff, it's people, managers and coaches with White Sox hats on, and everyone else is either everyone's from the Angels, and then they got Grady Sizemore from the Arizona Diamondbacks.
Yeah.
All A's on their hats.
White Sox. I like that.
The White Sox, the Chicago White Sox. Let's go.
Yeah, I mean, there needed to be a massive turnover in your coaching department, so I think that was probably smart. I don't know how much effect that really has, but the Daryl Boston that everyone hated there that's gone now. So
yeah, he's gone. No one really understood if he did anything.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of questions.
I guess there's reason to say no, he did not.
Yeah.
All right, I just wanted to point that out as too interesting and funny not to.
Yeah.
Ugh, whatever.
Well,
all right. What about what's going on with those Tigers over there, huh?
It was a surprise to absolutely no one, or it should have been no surprise. Ed-weirdo Rodriguez opted out of the last 3 years of his 5-year deal with the Tigers, leaving $49 million on the table.
What?
Of course, he did this. I'm not surprised. I'm not brokenhearted. I think in the last episode, we talked about it a little bit. I would have taken him on, for the next 3 years. That's not outrageous money.
No.
50 million divided by 3. It's not crazy, especially considering how great he was in the first couple months of last year. He was, amongst the best of any pitcher in the American League for at least 2.5 months before he had the bizarre pulley rupture in his left index finger that no one's ever heard of before.
It's all weights and pulleys.
Prior to that, the season prior to that, he had left the team under mysterious circumstances, dealing to a family matter, and was incommunicado for weeks at a time while he dealt with this matter, which just spoke to absolute disrespect for the organization. I thought didn't really matter that the Tigers were in such a tailspin in 2022. It meant little, but it was just another source of frustration. Came back in 2023 and was more than anyone could have hoped for, how well he was pitching. Then the injury came. Then it came to the trade deadline, where he, at the last moment, invoked his no trade clause to a deal that was going to happen between the Tigers and the LA Dodgers, who have a fascinating farm system that I will forever be vexed by who could have been coming back to the Tigers in that deal. What treasure trove of prospects we could have potentially gotten for Eduardo Rodriguez. I think equally frustrated are the Dodgers, whose rotation down the stretch was completely in tatters, and Erod would have solved at least a few issues. It certainly wouldn't have had Lance Lynn pitching for them in the playoffs, in the first round of the playoffs this season. So, just a weird guy. I'm not sorry to see him leave. I would have been okay if he was still there. He would have been locked in. Maybe he would have had another domestic situation where we didn't hear from him for months. That would always be the fear. considering he came back healthy and did pitch fairly well down the stretch, not quite to the lofty heights he reached in the first half before he got hurt. He's going to do quite well, I think, on the free agent market. He's younger than Stroman, or I don't know how he compares to Clevinger. I forget how old Clevinger is, but he put up good numbers this year when he was healthy. So I think he's going to be okay. So I think that makes sense, at least. What doesn't make sense, and what really pisses me off now, is they just announced today, his agent did, saying to all to all teams, he is not restricting any of his potential suitors by geography, the same way he did with his no trade clause. He said the only reason he didn't go to the Dodgers last season in that trade was because he didn't want to go to the West Coast. And now he is saying he didn't want to go to the West Coast for a mere 2 months. Now he's saying he doesn't care where he goes. He's opening it up to everyone. There's no geographical restrictions. So whatever happened before that trade deadline deal got nixed will forever be a mystery. And it makes even less sense now that he said he'd be more than willing to spend the rest of his career on the West Coast, where he said he couldn't spend 2 months there before. So I guess I'm just glad he's gone. I don't want to deal with it ever again. Good luck to whoever gets him. I think they are going to have to probably beat, he'd be making over 15 million a year for the next 3 years with his previous deal. I think he will beat that. I think he'll probably get a, 4-year deal. I'm sure he's looking for a 5-year, probably $90 million deal. I don't know. I'm not sure he's going to get that high, but this is going to lead to our final segment later on, but I might have to nominate him for our Asshole of the Year award.
Wow.
Considering how this has played out, and today's announcement that now he doesn't care about going to the West Coast or not. So all of that was bullshit, and it affected the futures and presence of 2 different franchises, one of which I care deeply about. But we'll see. But that's all I've got for Erod. Probably never talking about him again.
Unless he ends up on the White Sox or the Giants.
He could be a potential White Sox Giant. Could he be with the Cubs? My God. Ugh.
Another head case. That would be weird though, because like when you talked about Erod and you talked about arguably the best pitcher in the AL for the first 2 months of the season, it's almost like you were repeating the same conversation you had about Storman being the best pitcher in the first half for the NL.
Yeah, there's a lot of parallels.
Yeah. Both maybe a little goofy, so we'll see.
There's something going on there.
Speaking of the Giants, couple interesting things happened. Michael Conforto opted in, so he will be with the team next year. But more perplexing again with these pitchers, and maybe he didn't like the Giants, but Sean Manaea, who was god awful, opted out of his deal with the Giants.
I didn't even hear about that. That surprises me too.
And I have a couple different thoughts in my head. One, maybe he thought he just didn't pitch well. He didn't like the Giants culture or whatever.
Did they put him in the bullpen at one point?
Yeah. I mean, maybe he just felt like it was just like a terrible season and he just wants to start fresh. Yeah. I would understand
clean
that.
Slate. Yeah.
The other thing is wasn't he with Bob Melvin for a minute in San Diego?
Absolutely. Well, definitely in Oakland.
Oh yeah. So does he not like Bob Melvin? Because him opting out came after the hire of Bob Melvin. And I wonder.
That's interesting.
Yeah, that was the other thing I thought of. I'm like, I forgot. Does he not get along with Melvin? And he's just like, I'm fucking out. I got to get away from this guy.
That's an interesting connecting of the dots. I would say it's more coincidence, but maybe you're onto something. Well, you should dig deeper into that. Maybe put on your hardball deep throat hat.
Investigative journalism.
Yeah, become the Woodward and Bernstein of this podcast that we need.
So those are the notable opt-in, opt-outs, the other news was, Alex Cobb and aging Alex Cobb, a mid-upper 30s. Alex Cobb had hip surgery.
2023 All-Star Alex Cobb.
Yeah, the thing about Alex Cobb is I think the most innings he's ever pitched in a season is like 153. So, he was going to be there for the Giants, but he's not a workhorse. So they were going to have to probably end up at least signing one higher end pitcher this offseason. So, we'll see what happens.
So Cobb has a hip injury. He's out.
He had surgery. He's supposed to be back maybe the second month of the season.
Oh, okay, because I saw he was going to miss the start of the season. The first thing I read, he was out for the season. I'm like, that's not right. The first couple of months. Okay.
Yeah, first he could be back in May. So, but again, he's you
can't count on him at this
point. Yeah, right, exactly. So I don't think ultimately it's not like big news in that I don't think it affects the Giants offseason whether he's healthy or injured to start the season.
They're
still going to proceed the same manner, no matter what. So that's all I got for the Giants.
Well, I think we might as well start talking about who we are hoping our teams go for in this offseason. We had out with the old. How about in with the new?
Yeah, I mean, I tell you, I don't want Ohtani. The guy sucks. He's so overrated.
Should we just talk about Ohtani right now?
Let's just get Ohtani out of the way.
Okay. Well, Ohtani has been rumored. I mean, you and I have talked about I'm convinced he's going to the Dodgers.
Yeah, I am too.
He wants to be in nice weather. He wants to be close. He wants to be on the West Coast so he can get back to Japan very easily.
He's going to the West. He's staying in the West Coast.
I think that leaves, and I've seen people write that leaves the Giants as a strong candidate, which I find very plausible. You've got the money. We know everyone's got the money, but we definitely know you've got the money. You were just going to spend $300 million on, or $330 million on Carlos Correa.
Yeah.
I got Knicks. So yeah, I mean, you've got lots of cash sitting right there ready to be spent. The weirdest thing is the Cubs keep coming up, and not because I want to keep bringing them up, but they were just brought up yesterday. Unfortunately, it's from a dubious source. Our best friend Bob Nightingale brought it up. Shohei Ohtani is rumored to be pursued heavily, aggressively by the Cubs, and he is not just saying this. He's quoting general managers across the league saying that the Cubs have potentially the most significant interest and will pursue him the most aggressively. So that's fine. And that might be totally true too. I just think he doesn't want to go to Chicago.
Yeah, and there'll be great leverage for him.
Yeah, and he can use. Yeah, that's a great point. He could use the Cubs as leverage to get more money out of the Giants or the Dodgers.
Yeah,
so
right.
I think he's gonna be with the Dodgers. I think there's an outside chance he could go to the Giants. I think the least of at least these things we brought up would be the Cubs, but it's tantalizing that the Cubs keep getting brought up in these conversations.
The question that goes back to the Cubs and why they've always been tied to him, which we have talked about, is the Cubs were one of his landing spot choices initially.
Yes.
When coming over.
That would be partly because of the legend of Seiya Suzuki.
Yeah.
Who is revered in Japan and is like a hero to Ohtani. So there's plausibility there, I guess. I'd be shocked.
Yeah, well, I think then he got here and then he played in different weather conditions, and not just that, but to your point, it's the getting back home portion is significantly improved if he stays on the West Coast.
If he's a half a billionaire, more so, even more than that, he can get back to Japan whenever.
But I mean,
saving a couple hours.
Well, you're saving like 4 easily.
But yeah, again, I think that's negligible. I think that it's the weather issue. My question, I guess, goes back to where he started with the Angels. He chose the Angels. He could have chosen any place. place, and everyone was laying out the red carpet for him. Why did he choose the Angels to begin with? Why? This is the only reason I think he might not go to the Dodgers. Like, he could have just chose the Dodgers originally. He knows the history of the Angels as well as any of us. He can read. He knows what's going on. Yeah, I think maybe he wanted to play with Mike Trout.
Yeah, I think that was one of the reasons, actually. I
You
remember.
know, why wouldn't he want to play with the Dodgers? You know, so there's mystery. I'm not sure I understand his thought process, and I don't think, and he's pretty quiet and doesn't do a whole lot of interviews, so nobody really knows. But
And that could be why he doesn't want to play with the Dodgers. That could
that's
also be why he wouldn't want to play for the Cubs or the Yankees or any
maybe.
team in New York, because he doesn't want to go to like some super major market.
Well, yeah, like a harsh media market.
Yeah,
I don't know. I think I think it'll be
we'll
fascinating.
find
It's
out.
definitely- And the other fascinating part about it is you're signing two players, but are you really signing two players in one?
Well, now that's
he's
the next question. He's not pitching next year.
he's had Tommy John surgery twice already. And now he's not pitching next year. So you would be getting the best hitter in baseball. So maybe that's worth anything anyway. So I don't know. It's going to be fun. I love that at least two of our teams are in the mix, in the conversation at least. So we can continue to talk about it. But I think it's doubtful for the Cubs. I think it's more likely, of at least of the two, that he would be going to the Giants. I just wrote down kind of the top. There's millions of free agents out there. I just
right.
I think I took the top 4 in that list. Blake Snell, I think, is of interest to all of our teams.
Yeah, I mean, bring me Snelly. You know I love him. I
You
love
do.
him. He's an MLB The Show player.
What's
He's
not
a
to
gamer.
love?
He's a funny dude. I
Where do
love me
you,
some Snelly.
I mean, he makes sense for everybody essentially.
Yeah.
So, and everyone, we've all got money. So where I guess, have you read any play?
No, I
he's
haven't
more
read,
likely to go, or
I haven't read a thing.
okay.
The question with some of these players is, once they get to the West Coast, a lot of players don't want to leave. They like the weather out there. It's been a common trend. Like,
it's mellow.
It's just a different dynamic, and they like it. And
I lived out there for 11 months, and I couldn't wait to get the fuck back. But there's mitigating circumstances. I also wasn't being paid multi-million dollars to be out there. So
don't lie. So
I did have a nice per diem, like $50 a day. That was nice. But
your per diem. So that's the question I have. Is he into the West Coast vibe now, and is that gonna limit? Obviously the Giants, Dodgers would be.
The Dodgers are going to be players for all of these free agents.
So I don't know. We'll see.
I'd be surprised to see him in Chicago with the Cubs, or the White Sox. Although we both have the money to spend, as you pointed out. But again, I think that the Dodgers or the Giants might be the front runner, at least of our teams.
I think if you're talking a possible pitcher to the White Sox, it's Nola, because I believe, I could be mistaken, I feel like they heavily pursued him at one point. But was he the one whose wife didn't want to move to Chicago?
I don't remember that. Although that sounds familiar.
Like they had they had like a bigger offer than the Phillies, I think. And she didn't want to move to Chicago or something, so they went ahead and he went with the Phillies. I think that's it, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, I don't know. The White Sox would have to spend a lot of that 162 million underneath the cap, or underneath the tax threshold that they've got, because I think that you'd have to outbid everybody by far to get him to come there. I think he'd be one of the top free agents out there. So there's going to be a lot of competition. But yeah, you've got to build something somewhere. You've got Cease, and I mean,
what Cease? You got Cease. You got
Kopech.
Seesaw with Kopech.
He's got to go to the bullpen, doesn't he?
Well, they're not right now. That's not the talk. So
wouldn't he be an incredible closer or
he would be
guy?
an incredible closer. He already has been an incredible closer.
Yes, I think that's just where it's got to go. But
that
help,
doesn't help
this year.
I mean, we got Tuki Toussaint. I mean, it's not good. I'm just gonna stop because it's just
unbelievable. Depressing. Like rewind 12 months, we never thought we'd be saying these things about your rotation, but maybe we just didn't have the vision. But
is Lucas Giolito back on the table? Maybe they bring him back. I don't know, but
I don't see why he wouldn't be unless he wants nothing to do with ownership here. I've never heard him say a negative thing about anybody.
Yeah. So, but anyway, that's not the big names we want to talk about. But I mean, obviously the Sox most likely are not going to be in the talk for anyone we're talking about right now.
But you've got the resources.
So we have the resources, so that's
the key point to keep hammering White Sox ownership with is the resources are there. It's whether they choose to spend them or not.
I just read them off.
Jesus.
Let's go. Let's be like drunken sailors. Let's do this.
We could talk about free agents forever, but I just want to end it with Yamamoto.
Yeah.
From Japan. I mean, every Japanese export is fascinating because it's so mysterious. You don't really know how the numbers will translate. You know, over the first part of the Japanese invasion, it didn't go so well. There was, mostly misses. They're mostly, at least on the pitching side, they were okay, but not world beaters. But we've seen over the last, even 15, 20 years now that players that come over are making an impact from Japan, and especially Shohei Ohtani just blows everything out of the water. Maybe the best player we've ever seen, maybe the best player that's ever lived. So it's even more intriguing. Any player that's coming out of Japan, what they could be, what their potential could be. So Yamamoto, I don't know. He's going to get a lot of money. I know that. I've heard a rumor to go to Boston. I think he could make sense in Chicago.
Yep.
With the Cubs.
Yep.
Again, the Giants are. There's no reason they can't be right there for it. I think the Cubs are motivated to spend some money. I think this might be the guy they go for. Put it all on the table. I think it would be great. I don't know. I mean, I hope it would work out. His numbers look great in Japan, but you don't know how that translates necessarily. So I think that'll be fascinating. But he was on a lot of lists I saw. He was the number 4 most impactful free agent out there. So it's going to be fascinating. I think that's why we're definitely going to have a final episode probably in December, recapping all these free agent moves. Because I think all of our teams are going to be active somehow,
right?
One way or the other.
Agreed.
Another way our teams will be active, hopefully over this off season, to keep the news rolling, is in trades. And at least the Cubs have been rumored in several different trades. That's based on what I touched on briefly earlier, is the depth of their farm system. They've got the depth. They might not have the top end other than Pete Crow Armstrong, son of Lance and Sheryl Crow. I actually assumed that at first, but that's not true. It's I guess his parents are actors. The mom was in Little Big League back in the mid-90s.
I remember reading that. Yeah,
that was crazy. I was sure it was the son of Lance Armstrong and Sheryl Crow, but yeah, you didn't like that joke at all, did you?
No, it's pretty bad, but go on.
Sorry. Is that the first time I told that? Maybe I did that a couple times. It's awful, but
I think I've reacted the same way every time. But please go on with my jokes. Please go on with the wealth of the Cubs farm system for trade.
I think they have some depth. They also have depth at the major league that they can trade from. That's where it gets really interesting.
Could have done the same thing at the trade deadline. Anyway, go ahead.
Well, we had to go for it and have a fun 3 months of baseball.
Most gut wrenching last 2 weeks of the season, and
that was not
maybe baseball history.
I wouldn't go that far.
Well, yeah, I guess 69 Cubs take that.
Yeah, probably. Christopher Morel, I think, is definitely on the trading block because they can't find a position for him. He's really a designated hitter. They've tried him at, in the outfield. They've tried him at third base. That's because they have a second baseman. He could play second for sure, but Nico Horner's not going anywhere. So I think Christopher Morel is expendable and very attractive to
very attractive.
He's 25 years old. He hit 26 home runs in the limited time he was in the majors.
Insane.
He had 11 home runs before he even got called up. He had 11 in the minors. So his OPS plus is 116 in his time in the majors this year. I mean, it's impressive, and he just doesn't have a position with the Cubs. So that would be the centerpiece to any trade they make, and that's what puts him in a pretty strong position compared to other major league teams looking to trade for the likes of Juan Soto or Pete Alonso from the Mets. We've heard those rumors out there. I think those would make sense. Of course, those are both players on expiring deals. They'd be for 1 year, and then the Cubs would hope to re-sign those players. I think it could be done. It wouldn't just be Morel, though. It would be probably one of their top pitching prospects, Ben Brown, I've heard, would have to be packaged, or especially for Soto. And then it might take 2 more prospects, maybe 2 more pitching prospects. But I think the Cubs can absorb that. And it might be worth it for Juan Soto, who is clearly a generational talent. Just turned 25, is an OPS machine. Left-handed bat. It's everything the Cubs would want. So I'm dying for a Juan Soto trade. And then, of course, as everyone does, Cubs more than anyone, with their own goddamn television network and everything else working in their favor, they can re-sign him for whatever he wants. And I think this has to happen. I don't think I'm alone. I think you've heard this in a lot of places. Pete Alonso is interesting to me. I think I would much rather have Soto and then hope to sign him long term. Other than that, did you have other trade proposals you wanted to talk about, or
no?
I really shit on my idea.
No, I mean, you're not doing anything different than anyone on Twitter with a respected handle does, and isn't right. But I'm saying, and I mean, that was
kind of a compliment and a backhand compliment.
Yeah. I mean, it was. I'm just you question how the Padres are going to approach this thing.
They're kind of desperate, as I pointed out before.
Yeah, they are, but at the same time, I feel like they want to bring in a new manager and just give this, at least to start the year, this team one last chance to do it. So I don't know. We'll see what happens. But
really, the Cubs are.
But the Cubs have the I agree that
they're competing against the rest of the market. They're not really competing with the Padres. I think the Padres are going to take the best offer they can get. I think the Cubs have a chance to be able to give the best offer out there, just because of Morel, that he's expendable, which doesn't happen often on contending teams. So,
are the Cubs a contending team?
I will call them contenders. Yes, they just got one of the best managers in the game. They were in contention for the playoffs this year. There's no reason they shouldn't win their division, who they weakened, the division winner this past season. They'd weakened by stealing their manager from them.
Maybe they're going to get a better manager.
David Ross. The ultimate dick move would be for the Brewers to actually pick up David Ross. So we'll see the spite pick. One trade that did already happen was with my Detroit Tigers. Mark Canha, former Oakland A, former New York Met, and former Milwaukee Brewer, actually. Mark Canha, 35-year-old outfielder. I like the move. I've always liked Canha. Let's see. I've got his stats right here. He had a
2.2 WAR.
Yeah, 2.2 WAR last year. What was his OPS plus of 108? I like it. Adds depth to the outfield. my question is, why would you trade for a 35-year-old with a? I mean, essentially, Tigers have one of the youngest rosters in the majors. I don't. I mean, we always talk about what a shitty division the AL Central is.
Yeah,
I think they're a contender for it, but
yeah,
it's
I would
just
agree.
it's just strange. I mean, this is definitely a short-term idea. How long Canna can continue to put up numbers like that is in question. So I'm a little bit perplexed by it. I'm not against it, but I don't even know the pitching prospect they gave up for him. He's like a reliever in the farm system. So they didn't give up a whole lot for him. He's only getting paid $11 million. So that's all fine. But it's just the age, I guess, that I find perplexing. So maybe Scott Harris is sending a small signal that they're definitely gonna try to do something this year and really go for it. We'll see what that actually means or what that looks like. So I guess I'm not against this move, but I'm for it. It helps. It adds to the outfield depth, but it's just kind of strange. But do we have any other free agent or trade talks to talk about?
Not really free agents, but more of what we were alluding to earlier was one of the reasons that Tim Anderson was relieved of his duties because the Sox feel one Colson Montgomery is ready to make that next leap forward. And
Yeah, that's great.
he did he was just named the Arizona Fall League player of the season.
Yeah, that's
Uh,
impressive.
he raked. He had great defense. He he actually, oddly enough, he is like watching a reel of him. He is a lot like Timmy with the way he hits. He's got that like sneaky power, but he
Mm.
also has the ability to put the ball in play just over the infield and down the line and get those extra bases and constantly be on the base pass. So I think Chris Getz knows him well because of his
He was the
time
farm
in the
director.
minors in the farm
Yeah.
director. And I think they're just, I think that's part of the move. I'm not saying they're not going to maybe like what the Tigers just did, hire like get a veteran infielder of some sort in the offseason, but nothing like major, someone to be there in more of a relief and guidance role, like a role player type of situation. So, but yeah, I think that was a signal that the Sox are like, it's time to get on the move forward and have the Colson Montgomery era start.
That would make sense, letting, moving on from TA. How old is Montgomery now? We've heard about him for years. Is he
I think
21
like,
even?
yeah, like, I'm not, I think
He's
he's
been
like,
hurt is part of what's delayed his
yeah,
progress, but if he's healthy and winning MVPs of the Arizona Fall League, I think he's gotta be on the cusp, and what's the worst that could happen? You call him up. I mean, I
yeah.
think
Well, I'm not, yeah, he's 21.
yeah, I think
Um,
it's time.
I mean, why wait? This is a season that, unless we see some dramatic moves, is a lost season. Um, and even we see like decent enough moves because it's the AL Central. Obviously, anything's up for grabs. But even that being said, let him come up and get the experience. He seems to have earned it at this
I think
point.
it's time, yeah. I think you're
So,
right. I think that would also inject some life into the White Sox fan base. It'd be something to look forward to as opposed to everything else that's been happening. I think it would be a good PR move, but I think it would be the right baseball move too. So I'd like to see him. I've heard about him for fucking ever. I want to see him finally. So
I mean, we'll have him, and then we'll add Merrifield, Salvador Perez,
yeah, and a bunch of other Royals. Yeah.
some other Benintendi has the Royal tie-in. I mean, it's all coming up KC North for
This
the
is
White Sox.
I mean, this is totally a graphic designer joke, but did you notice on all the new social media posts, there's a there's a little tab they're using in all their graphics that looks just like the Kansas City Royals logo. I pointed it out on Twitter a couple of times. You'll see it next time you look. They put it's like essentially a pennant, but it's the same shape as the Kansas City Royals logo. It's just they're making it way too obvious that they want to be the Royals. But yes, I've heard about Whit Merrifield coming to play second base for you guys. I think that would make perfect sense. I think he was in Toronto last. His deal's out. That rumor about trading for Salvador Perez at the trade deadline sounded so absurd, but it sounds like that was real.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, it would just continue that narrative, the Chicago Royals. Well, I mentioned graphic design briefly right there. I think that leads us to our final segment, my favorite, aesthetics.
Oh, I didn't even expect one this episode, but you found a way to work it in.
Well, for the first time ever, we have to revisit an old aesthetics, which we just did just a couple months ago with your San Francisco Giants.
We were praising them.
We were. They did a fantastic job with the controversial and now even more controversial ad patch on the sleeve of their jerseys, which most teams have executed, I think, poorly.
Yeah.
The Tigers did an okay job.
Tigers did okay. They blended it well. It's not
Astros are amongst the worst. I don't even know what the fuck is on their sleeve.
Meth. It's all about meth. Yeah. It's all about meth. Oxy.
But the Giants actually did a good job. They integrated this automated taxi service called Cruise. They integrated the logo very well into their jersey. They used elements from the ballpark. They used colors from San Francisco and specifically the Giants. It worked out really well until the business itself has now been banned from the city and the state of California. Automated taxis. It
was a risky move to begin with.
It's a terrifying idea to most humans.
I
think it's been embraced. It's actually been going on for a while in San Francisco, being near Silicon Valley. It's been happening, but in particular, Cruise, the sponsor of the San Francisco Giants jerseys, they have now been banned after several incidents in the city, including a pedestrian being pinned, which I think it drove up to a pedestrian, pinned him against a wall.
I don't know why I'm laughing. It sounds terrifying.
It's awful.
At the same time, you're just like,
I don't think anyone was killed. So I guess
Total Recall or something.
Yeah,
What's happening here?
2 weeks. But, a pedestrian was dragged, or at least a customer was dragged. It's gotten to the point where the citizens have revolted, where they will put traffic cones on top of the sensor on top of the car to blind the car, so they essentially disables them. It's like vigilante justice. It's been a disaster to the point where they've now been banned. Which I can't make light of people being injured or whatever. It's just kind of funny that this happened, but it'd be funny enough. Just that it happened so that we made a whole segment about it. And now the company's not existing in the market, but someone pointed out what happened the day that patch was announced for the Giants versus what happened after that. And the Giants were 61-49 on their way to the playoffs, most likely a wild card bid at that point.
Yeah.
They had a 75.4% chance of making the playoffs on August 3rd, the day of the announcement. From that date forward, they went 18-34 and finished 4 games below 500.
Thanks for reminding me.
Missed the playoffs. So now they are calling this the Cruise Curse, which I think is just too perfect. So it had to be addressed in another revisiting of an aesthetic segment. It was too ironic, or at least coincidental, not to bring up again. So the power of graphic design, or the evil power of graphic design, potentially, like how it can turn a franchise upside down. I'm sorry about that. We praised that patch and ended up being a curse.
Fuck the Cruise.
So I'll have fun making a graphic, just rewording Cruise into curse. That'll be easy to do.
I can't wait.
This is what I do. It's fucking November. This is what happens.
You got time, right?
Yeah, I've got some time. Well, that pretty much wraps up the show. We are going to do at least one more episode by the end of the year. I think right now we'll probably do one a month. We did one in October. We'll do one. We just did this in November.
Yeah.
Probably wait a month, see what kind of news comes out. But we definitely need to do our end of the year asshole of the year, 5th annual. We've done 4 assholes of the year, starting out with Addison Russell, Rob Manfred, of course. We indicted the entire Mets organization 2 years ago, and last year, of course, Fernando Tatis Jr. This year, we need to start talking about our nominations, at least, for asshole of the year, and we'll take any listeners' suggestions as well. You can get to us on Twitter or on our Facebook page or on our website. I shut off comments on our YouTube page long ago because got too many date rapists fighting for the right to date rape with the whole Trevor Bauer situation. So I just felt it was better just to shut off comments there. So, but you can comment on any of our other social media if you've got suggestions for our assholes of the year. Just off the top of my head, we might as well nominate Oakland A's owner John Fisher, callously relocating the team and blaming it on the fans themselves.
Yes.
Spending his parents' money from the Gap clothing empire. Just a despicable situation.
Poorly.
Yeah.
Spending it poorly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or not at all, really.
Taking his toys and moving to Vegas for whatever reason, just shitting on an entire population and there in Oakland. Other potential nominations. Is there some way to throw the White Sox in there? They have.
Well, okay. So this is what I was going to say.
They've crushed your spirit. You stopped watching baseball.
It's got to be Jerry Reinsdorf. Has to be nominated.
I had him on my list. We'll definitely nominate. I didn't know what direction you wanted to go there.
Yeah,
I thought the White Sox had to be nominated somehow because for a lifelong baseball fan as yourself to be to the point where you can't even watch a game.
Yeah,
someone is being an asshole. Someone's being an asshole to you specifically and to all White Sox fans out there.
We were sold a bag of magic beans. We really
so you're gonna nominate Reinsdorf. I didn't know if you wanted to go after Han or Kenny or the whole organization.
No, because I believe over time, I think Rick Hahn might have a bestseller on his list. If he actually ever,
I can't wait. And he's been totally silent, hasn't he?
Yeah. Well, I think he's just looking. He's hoping people realize
he should be in a front office
going on there. Yeah, he's going to be in a front office somewhere, maybe the Kansas City Royals. But the irony. But you know,
I think that's
I think a tell-all book from Han would be one of the most, at least for me, one of the most fascinating reads.
I think that would be fantastic. I hope we'd definitely have to do a book review on this podcast.
We'd have to read. God.
The only other, we've got 2 owners there. I think those are strong candidates. You and I are going to have
we might have to fight about who.
Well, maybe we might even have assholes of the year. No one can stop us.
No one can stop us.
I'm going to throw a player in there. I did earlier, Ed-weirdo Rodriguez, for everything I described.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
I'm not sure his level of assholishness comes to that level of John Fisher or Jerry Reinsdorf, but I'm going to nominate him at least at this moment. But yeah, go ahead. If you're listening to this, go ahead and send us your nominations either through the website, through our Twitter feeds, or Facebook. You can get a hold of us if you need to. So
yeah, we're out.
That'll be fun. I always look forward to Asshole of the Year. That's actually the last couple of years. Those have been some of our highest rated podcasts. So people are looking to listen to who we call the biggest asshole of this past season. Well, that's all I've got for this episode, unless we had anything I forgot or shit Pete forgot.
No, there's not enough happening for me to forget anything right now. I will say though, going back to your earlier comment, I'm invigorated about baseball again now that we've entered the off season, and I think I said it earlier. Like just the White Sox, like not renewing Tim Anderson, whether it's right or wrong, it just
kind of a renewal.
It just seems different.
Yeah.
It really does. It feels different.
It's
and
tearing down of the old and
yeah,
maybe the beginning of the new. I think
yeah, and
I think that's a great way to put it.
I'm not I'm I'm not a fan of Chris Getz yet. I'm not. I think it was the easy move, but
Mhm.
um, it could end up maybe it was the right move. I'm not gonna say it was the wrong move 100%, but there to me were other people they could have gotten who probably would have made more of an impact. But him doing what he just did to me is trending in the right direction. So
I think your attitude is healthy. Give him a chance. Before you crush him, before you just reject him. I think you're giving him a chance. I think that's the right way to approach it. Uh, until he until he does something that completely lets you down. But he did have comments. I think you could get behind, and a lot of Sox fans could get behind this week alone. He literally said, "I don't like our team,"
yeah,
and I think it's a blunt way to put it. It's kind of shocking for a GM to say that, but I think it's very accurate,
yeah.
and that is an accurate assessment of certainly how the fans feel. So I think maybe that's a positive. I think your spirits are buoyed by that Rolling Stones album cover sitting next to you. That's got to be the
Hey,
subject of your next tattoo.
yeah, look at that. Look at that. We get the Sox logo down there too.
It's pretty solid.
You flip
CW,
it over, you get the Sox logo again on the back. Look at that.
crass commercialism.
I know. The
Yeah,
Stones cashing in and taking advantage of me. I not only have the Sox, I have the Giants version back here too.
you didn't stand a
For those,
chance.
yeah, I didn't stand a chance. I mean, thank God I didn't like a third team.
Gets expensive.
Apparently, this is I right now I'm going with the nerd move of leaving them sealed. Apparently,
Mm.
the vinyl is white though, which
You could
is
open one of them at least.
maybe the Giants one. I don't know.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
Oh,
Yeah,
geez.
you can have two sealed of the same thing. What are
Well,
you doing?
I already have a third version of the album. Please, Smitty.
You weren't even telling us how nerdy you actually are.
Yeah, and I have the third black vinyl pressing to play. Come on
Oh
now.
my god. Okay. All right. We've gone too deep into the weeds.
All right,
Gonna-
let's get out of our new podcast, Pete's Vinyl, Pete's Spins.
Oh, that's the music tablet. You could start that back up
I could
anytime.
start the music tablet, yeah. All right,
All
anyway.
right. We digress. Let's get
End
out of
this,
here.
end this.
Yeah, it's
I wanna
enough.
go eat some dinner. Yeah.
Oh, you haven't eaten. Okay, let's get
Yeah.
out. Well, that wraps up this episode 137 of Major League A-holes in the hole / tops socks type thing.
Top socks. Top socks. Sax
You
top
could
thing.
you can find us on social media at Major League A-holes on Twitter, also on Twitter, socks type thing.
Or
You
sax
could
type thing.
yeah, we should change it to sax type thing. You can find us on Facebook. You can find us on the web at majorleagueaholes.com or sockstypething.com. You can find us on YouTube. Unfortunately, you cannot comment there for reasons I explained before. But you can find this podcast anywhere you'd like to find a podcast. So with that, I'm going to declare this podcast is over. Peace.
Peace.
Word Hole Media.